Minasan, ohayo gozaimasu. So for today's grammar lesson, we will be learning about topics from Chapter 3. Chapter 3 is all about numbers, and we will be discussing counting, phone numbers, prices, and then the special counters. Okay, so let's start with counting. So for counting, we first need to start with basic counting, so from 1 to 10. Okay, so we have the list of numbers from 1 to 10 here. Ichi, ni, san, shi or yon, go, roku, shichi or nana, hachi, kyu or ku, and ju. So ju or 10 will be our affix for tens. So you might have noticed that for the numbers 4, 7, and 9, we have two variations. So there will be cases that you need to use one variation and some other cases that you need to use the other one. So for that, we will just let you know, or I will just teach you as we go through the class which cases you need to use which variation. Okay, so once you know the numbers 1 to 10, or once you know how to count from 1 to 10, it will be easy for you to count from 11 to 99. So let's try to look at the example. So for example, you wanted to count 11. So 11 is basically 10 plus 1. So again, we will use our affix for 10, ju, plus 1, ichi, so that becomes ju ichi. So 11 is ju ichi. Okay. So we have some other examples here. For example, we have 12. So 12 is 10 plus 2. So ju plus ni, ju ni. And then another one, we have 15, which is 10 plus 5. So that's ju plus go, ju go. Okay, so how about when you want to count, let's say 20? So 20 is basically two tens. So again, R2 is ni plus 10, which is ju, ni ju. Okay, so let's look at a couple more examples. So we have 27. So 27 is basically two tens and then 7. So 2 is ni, 10 ju, and 7 nana. So 27 becomes ni ju nana. Another example, we have 43. So 43 is again basically 4 tens and then 3. So that's 4 yon, 10 ju, and then 3 san. So 43 becomes yon ju san. Okay? So let's try to practice based on that rule. Let's try to practice counting using the examples you have here. Okay, so next, let's move on to our hundreds. So for hundreds, first you have to remember our affix for hundred is hyaku. So hyaku means 100. So for example, you wanted to say 200, then following the same rule, 200 is just 2 plus 100. So 2 is ni plus hyaku, so 200 is ni hyaku. Okay, so we have a list here. So let's try to go down the list. So again, you have 100, hyaku, 200, nihyaku. Then let's skip 300 first. Let's go to 400, yonhyaku, 500, gohyaku. Let's go to 700 first. 700, nanahyaku. Then 900, kyuhyaku. Okay, so you might have noticed I skipped over 300, 600, and 800. And the reason why is because these ones have special sounds or special readings that we need to take note of. So for 300, instead of saying san hyaku, we will say san byaku. And then for 600, instead of saying roku hyaku, we'll say ropyaku. And lastly, instead of saying hachi hyaku for 800, we will say hapyaku. Okay, so let's take a look at our examples here. So we have 105 or 105. So that's basically 100 and 5. So 100 is hyaku, 5 go. So 105 becomes hyaku go. And then next example, we have 220. So 220 is two hundreds, two tens. So 200s is ni hyaku, 2 tens niju, 220 then becomes ni hyaku niju. Okay, last example here we have 692. So 600 is so that is 600s, 9 tens and then 2. So 600 becomes ropyaku, 9 tens is kyuju, and then lastly 2 ni. So 692 becomes ropyaku kyuju ni. Okay. So let's try to practice using our examples here. So since the numbers are getting a little longer, I'll give you time to prepare your answers and then we'll answer them in class. Okay, next we have the thousands. So for thousands, the affix we need to remember is sen. So sen means thousand. So following the same rule, if we wanted to say 2000, then we just combine 2 plus 1000. So that becomes 2 ni with 1000 sen ni sen. Okay, so let's look again at our list here. So we have 1000 sen, 2000 ni sen. So let's skip 3000 first. 4000 yon sen, 5000 gosen, 6000 roksen, 7,000 nanasen, then 9,000 kyusen. Again, we skip the ones with the special pronunciation first. So we have 3,000. So instead of sansen, we say sanzen. And then for 6,000, you can notice that it's underlined here. So the spelling is the same, but instead of pronouncing it rokusen, we will devocalize the U, or we don't need to pronounce the U, and we can just say Roksen. And then lastly, we have, for the special sounds, we have 8,000. So instead of Hachisen, we will say Hassen. Okay, so let's take a look at our examples here. So we have 1,500. So 1,500 is 1,000 plus 5 hundreds. So that becomes sen go hyaku. Next, we have 4019. So that's 4 thousands, 10, and then 9. So 4 thousands is yon sen, 10 ju, and then 9 q. Lastly, our example here is 8,803. So that's 8 thousands, 8 hundreds, and then 3. So 8 thousands, that's hassen, 800s, that's hapyaku, and then last san. So 8,803 becomes hassen hapyaku-san. Okay, so let's try to practice using our examples here. Again, I'll give you time to prepare first and then we'll answer one by one in class. Okay, so now next we've reached the 10,000s. So from the 10,000 onwards, we're going to follow the 4-digit rule. So what is the 4-digit rule? So for example, in English, when you say 10,000s, then it's kind of saying 10 times 1,000. But in Japanese, 10,000 is actually can be said as 1 times 10,000 or ichiman. So your affix for the 10,000s is man. So let's say we wanted to say 30,000 in Japanese. So following the 4-digit rule, what we do is we'll count 4 digits from the end of the number. So that's from the right. So here, let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 zeros. And then we're left with 3. So 3 is san. And then we just add man to represent the remaining zeros. So 30,000 in Japanese is san man. Okay, so let's take a look at another example. So our next example is 126,100. So let's count again from the end. So we have 0, 0, 1, 6. Cut there. And then we're left with 12. So 12 is ju ni. So ju ni man. And then after that, that's where we'll read the remaining 4 digits. So we're left with 6,100, right? So 6,100 is basically 6 thousands and 100. So that will become roksen hyaku. So 126,100 becomes juniman roksen hyaku. Okay. Then last example we have is 21,300. So for this one, again, let's apply the 4-digit rule. Let's count 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 0, 0, 3, 1. We're left with 2. 2 is ni. And then man. And then we're left with 1,300. So we'll read that as isen sanbyaku. So please take note here that since our thousands has a number in front of it, instead of reading it as sen, we'll read it as isen. So again, if your thousands, or let's say 1,300 is standalone, so just by itself, then you read it as sen sanbyaku. But if it has a number in front of it, like this example here, we will read it as isen. So 21,300 becomes niman isen sanbyaku. Okay. So if you look at your book, at your textbook, you'll see that in the table showing the 10,000s, you also have some decimals and some fractions. So actually, decimals and fractions are not included in the JLPT N5. But just in case you need to know this for, let's say, work, for example, I'll show you a little, or I'll touch on it briefly, just so you guys have an idea. Okay, so let me share this example for your decimal and fraction. So for the decimal, what you need to take note of first is this decimal point. So in Japanese, we read that as 10. Okay, and then for decimals, you just read the number as single digits. So you just pronounce them or read them one by one. So let's say our example here is 0.5. So 0 in Japanese, you can say it as zero, rei, or maru. So I commonly see 0, so let's use that. So 0.5, that's 0. And then point becomes 10, 5 go. So 0.5 is 0, 10 go. Another example, you have 2.56. So 2.56, we have ni, 10, go, roku. Okay? So just one note or one special thing you need to be aware of is when you start your decimal with 1, let's say 1 point something something, then you have to pronounce it itten rather than ichiten. So for example, here we have an example 1.34. So you'll read that as itten san yon. Okay? So next, for the fractions, what we need to take note of is the slash. So for the fractions, we read the slash as bunno. So how we read this is first, we start with the number under the slash. So in this example, we have 1/2. The number under the slash is 2. And then the slash bunno. And then the number above the slash 1, ichi. So 1/2 becomes ni bunno ichi. Okay, so one more example for the fraction. We have 3/4. So again, following the same rule, we start first with the number under the slash or the denominator. You have 4, so yon, slash bunno, the number on top, san. Okay, so that's just to let you guys know about the fractions and decimals, but that will not be included in the JLPT N5. Okay, so let's go back to our 10,000s and let's try to practice based on what we've learned. So for this one, since it's quite long, I'll give you guys time again to prepare your answers and then we'll answer these in class. Okay. Okay, so now let's go on to our next topic, which is phone numbers. Okay, so for phone numbers, okay, so when you want to ask for phone numbers, then you can use the interrogative nanban or none. So let's say you want to ask for someone's cell phone number. So cell phone number is ketai bango. So you'll just follow the same pattern for our copula interrogative. So ketai bango wa nanban desu ka? Or ketai bango wa nan desu ka? Okay, so just remember the placement of the interrogative. So will always be in the B part. Okay, so when you want the answer, then you just read your number as one by one or as single digits. And you just have to take note of this hyphen here. So this hyphen in Japanese, you read it as no. So let's say you want to answer that your number is 0917 598 5788. Then you just read the numbers 0917の598578です。Okay, so of course end it in des since we are answering as a sentence. So for example, if you want to ask for the Denwa Bango, that's phone number, then you just of course replace Ketai Bango with Denwa Bango. So your question will be Denwa Bango wa nanban desu ka or Denwa Bango wa nan desu ka? Okay. So let's try to practice using our examples here. Okay, now let's try to read also using our reibun in our textbook. Okay, so now let's go to our next topic, which is prices. So this will become very handy if ever you go to Japan or just when you need to ask for the price of something. So for the pattern, we will just follow the pattern that we know for the interrogative sentence. We just need to use the interrogative ikura or ikura gurai. So ikura means how much and ikura gurai is around how much. So let's say you wanted to ask how much is A. Then you follow the pattern A wa ikura desu ka or A wa ikura gurai desu ka? So just make sure, of course, that the interrogative is in the B part as we have learned. Okay, so when you want to give the price, then you just say the number as you've learned, or you just count it based on what we've learned, and then make sure to add the currency at the end. So let's say you want to answer that it is 500 yen. So you have 500. Again, 500 is 5 and then 100. So that's go, hyaku. And then your currency, let's say yen, go, hyaku, en desu. Okay. So with Japanese yen, usually in Japan, or when you say it in Japanese, you pronounce the yen as just en. Okay. So of course, make sure to replace your currency with the relevant currency that you need. It can be doru for dollar, or peso for Philippine peso, or any other currency that you might need. Just use the appropriate one. Just make sure to include it at the end. Okay, so one more example. For the price, we have 31,500 yen. So let's use our 4-digit rule. So let's count 0, 0, 5, 1. So then we're left with 3. So we have san, man. And then remember, we have to pronounce it as isen if there's a number in front. Isen go hyaku en desu. Okay. So let's try to practice using our examples here. Okay, next, let's try to read our reibun in the textbook. Okay, so any questions so far for the counting and phone numbers and the prices? Okay, so now let's move on to counters. So counters, in Japanese, there are different counters that you use depending on the kind of item that you are counting. But first, let's go to the generic counters before we move on to the special counters. So these generic counters, kind of similar to the piece in English, and you have your generic counters here from 1 to 10. So let's try to pronounce the counters. or utter the counters. One piece, hitotsu. Two pieces, futatsu. Three pieces, mitsu. Four pieces, yotsu. Five pieces, itsutsu. Six pieces, mutsu. Seven pieces, nanatsu. Eight pieces, yatsu. Nine pieces, kokonotsu. And then 10 pieces, to. Okay, so those are our generic counters. I would say for the generic counters, you can use this generally for objects. Of course, for people, that will be different. Okay, so on the right side, you can see the list of our special counters. So these are the counters that you will encounter in N5. Okay, so we have here Sai for age. So that's what you use to refer to your age or someone's age. Then we have nin for number of persons. So that's when you're counting people. Mai for flat objects. So you can use that for loose sheets of paper, CDs, or any flat, generally flat objects. Hon, so that's your counter for thin, long objects like pens, pencils, bottles. Satsu for books and notebooks. So these are for your bound volumes of paper, maybe magazines. You can use satsu as well. Kai is for frequency or the number of times. Gai is for the floor number. Ko, small objects, so accessories or maybe erasers, sharpeners, things like that. Hiki you use for small animals, kittens, puppies, cats, or dogs. And then dai is for vehicles and machines. So for your cars, automobiles, for household appliances as well, you can use dai. And then lastly, ban for the order. So like first, second, third, etc. And you can also use banme, or you should use banme if you're referring to your order in the family. Okay, so let's try to go over our special counters. So let's start first with sai. So as you can see here in our list, some words are colored in blue. So these are the words that have a special sound or special pronunciation that we need to take note of. So for your special counters, once you are able to master 1 to 10, then it'll be very easy for you to count in higher numbers as long as you know this 1 to 10. So first, let's take note of our special pronunciations or special sounds. We have 1-year-old issai, 8-year-old hassai, and 10-year-old jussai. Okay, so again, please take note that for sai, we have a special pronunciation for 1, 8, and then 10. So let's try to pronounce or utter these for our familiarization. Okay, issai, nisai, sansai, yonsai, gosai, rokusai, nanasai, hassai, kyusai, and jussai. Okay? So next, let's go to nin. So the counter for the number of persons. Okay? So for this one, the special sounds that you have to take note of is for 1 person, 2 people, and then 4 people. So for 1, we have hitori, 2, futari, and 4, yonin. So this is just a single consonant, not double. So instead of yonin, it's just yonin. Okay? So let's try to utter these. So hitori, futari, sannin, yonin, gonin, rokunin, nananin, hachinin, kyunin, and then junin. So when you want to increase the number, of course, you can just follow the rules that we've learned. So let's say you want to count 12 people. So 12 is 10 and 2. So ju, ni, nin. Okay? Okay, so next let's go to mai. So mai is fairly easy since we don't have to have any special sounds. So we're just going to add mai at the end of our numbers. Okay, so let's try to utter the counters. So ichimai, nimai, sanmai, yonmai, gomai, rokumai, nanamai, hachimai, kyumai, and jumai. Okay? So no special sounds for mai. Next, we have hon. So for your thin, long objects. So this one, we have a couple of special sounds. We have the special sound for 1, 3, 6, 8, and then 10. So let's look at the special sounds first. So we have ipon, sanbon, ropon, hapon, and jupon. So please take note of the double consonants here. And of course, for the three pieces, instead of P, you will say B, sanbon. Okay? So let's try to utter these. So ippon, nihon, sanbon, yonhon, gohon, roppon, nanahon, happon, kyuhon, and juppon. Okay, so again, we just follow the rules that we've learned. When you want to say, let's say, 24 bottles or 24 pens. So that's 24, two tens, and then 4. So niju yonhon. Okay? Okay, so next let's go to satsu for your books, notebooks, magazines, etc. So we have special sounds for 1, 8, and then 10. Okay, so first we have isatsu, then for 8, hasatsu, and then 10, jusatsu. So again, please take note of the ones that have special pronunciations. And let's try to utter the counters. So isatsu, nisatsu, sansatsu, yonsatsu, gosatsu, rokusatsu, nanasatsu, hasatsu, kyusatsu, and jusatsu. Okay? Next, let's go to kai. So kai again referring for the number of times or frequency. Our special pronunciation here is in the 1, 6, 8, and then 10. So ikkai, rokkai, hakkai, and jukkai. So please take note of the double consonants here or the special sounds. And let's try to utter from 1 to 10. So that's ikkai, nikai, sankai, yonkai, gokai, rokkai, nanakai, hakkai, kyukai, and jukkai. Okay, so next, let's go to gai or for the number of floors. So actually, for the number of floors and frequency, they're the same except for the third floor for gai. So remember in frequency, 3 times is just sangkai. But for the number of floors, the third floor is sangai. Otherwise, the other counters with the special pronunciations are the same. So we have ikkai, sangai, rokkai, hakkai, and jukkai. Okay? So let's try to pronounce from 1 to 10. Ikkai, nikai, sangai, yonkai, gokai, rokkai, nanakai, hakkai, kyukai, and jukkai. Okay. So next, moving on to ko for your small objects. So here the special sounds are in 1, 6, 8, and then 10. Okay, so for the special sounds, we have ikko, rokko, hakko, and jukko. Okay, so next let's try to count from 1 to 10 for our familiarization. So ikko, niko, sanko, yonko, goko, rokko, nanako, hakko, kyuko, and jukko. Okay, so next, hiki. So again, hiki is used for small animals like cats and dogs. So for the special sounds, we have 1, 3, 6, 8, and then 10. So we have ipiki, sanbiki, roppiki, happiki, and juppiki for the special sounds. So let's try to utter these from 1 to 10 for our familiarization. So, ippiki, nihiki, sanbiki, yonhiki, gohiki, roppiki, nanahiki, happiki, kyuhiki, and juppiki. Okay, so next let's go to dai. So again, that is for your vehicles, cars, and then machinery. So maybe appliances. So for this one, it's fairly easy. Don't need any special sounds, or you don't need to take note of any special sounds. We just need to attach a die to the number when you want to count. So let's try to utter from 1 to 10. Ichidai, nidai, sandai, yondai, godai, rokudai, nanadai, hachidai, kyudai, and judai. Okay. Okay, so next we have, or last, we have for the order. So order means first, second, third, etc. We have ban. So again, for this one, you don't have any special sounds. So we just attach ban at the end of the number. So let's try to utter. Ichiban, niban, samban, yonban, goban, rokuban, nanaban, hachiban, kyuban, juban. So you often hear me saying these when we run through the Reibun in class. So I am basically counting the number of the example. So just one thing to take note of, when you want to give your order in the family, then you use banme. So let's say you're the second in your siblings, then you can say ni banme. When you're the eldest, you can say ichiban me. Or actually, you can also say ichiban ue, or the like number one top, or this the first one. And you can also say, if you're the youngest, ichiban shita, or you're at the very bottom if you are the youngest. Okay. Okay, so now let's try to practice using our examples. Okay, next let's try to read the Reibun in our textbook. Okay, so now let's try to use what we learned in a sentence. So you for the counters, we can use our copula sentence. So when we use it in the copula sentence, we just put the counter in the B part of our pattern. So ewa B des just becomes ewa counter des. Okay, so the counter will be in the B part. So let's say you have two apples. So apples is ringo. So we can use the generic counter futatsu. So we can say ringo wa futatsu desu. Okay? So next we have ball pen. So again, ball pen is a thin long object, so we can use the counter hon. So we have three, so that's sambon. So you can say boru pen wa sambon desu. Okay. Okay, next, we can also use our counters in our existential sentence pattern. So this one, we're using our ni ga pattern. So for the placement of the counter, we usually put this um, before the existential verb. So before arimas or before imas. Okay? So for this example, we have the tsukue ni borupen ga 3本 arimasu. Okay? So you just put sambon before the existential verb arimas. Okay? So please remember, of course, to use imas when you're talking about people. So let's say you want to say there are 3 students in the classroom. So classroom, kyoshitsu. Kyoshitsu ni gakusei ga 3人 imasu. Okay? So just as an example of using imas. Okay. Okay, so now let's look at our interrogatives for our counters. So these are the interrogatives or question words that we will use when you want to ask for how many or maybe how many times there is of something. So for the generic, we can use ikutsu. And then for the flat objects, nanmai. For the age, nansai or oikutsu. Nandai is for vehicles, machines, gadgets. Nankai for frequency. Nangai, number of floors. Oh, sorry, number of floors. So we just basically added nan in front of our counter. And one thing to take note of is for the nansai or the age, a more formal way or a more polite way of asking for someone for their age is to say oikutsu. So when you ask someone their age, you can say oikutsu desu ka? So how old are you? In a more polite way. Okay, so let's look at how we will place the interrogatives. So this is just the same as what we've learned so far. We just put the interrogative in the B part of our copula sentence pattern. So let's say you want to ask how old someone is, but this time you want to use nansai. So let's say Ana-san. So you can ask Ana-san wa nansai desu ka? Or nansai desu ka? And then for your answer, then you just give the age with the counter for age. So you say 23 desu. Okay. So another example, you can ask JLRC wa nangai ni arimasu ka? So in what floor is JLRC? And let's say the answer is the fifth floor. So you say 5階にあります. Okay. So let's try to practice using our examples here. Okay, next let's try to read the ribbon in our book. Okay, so any questions for the counters? Okay. So that is the end of our chapter 3.